Okay, and I'm now recording. So, this is Bruce Edwin with Hollywood Sentinel. I'm speaking here today with Dwight. And Dwight Cleveland, I read about you and had the pleasure to hear about you from the Motion Picture Academy. Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, actually, to be precise. And interesting news, I read that you were kind enough to give them a quite large collection of movie posters. How did that come about?
How did that come about? Well, I've been giving, it's kind of interesting, I've been giving things to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. for years.
Wow.
And have established an archive there of things all predominantly pre-1940.
Okay.
And in 2011, the same protocol that I'd used prior to that, which was basically call them sometime in December and say, you know, I've got another group of things that I'd like to give. But in 2011, they said that they couldn't process it by the end of the year. And so, believe it or not, and I wanted to donate it in that calendar year. And so I sort of cast around, and to be quite honest with you, you know, the Academy gets a lot of stuff donated to them. Not really that many posters, but they, you know, they get archives of letters and props and all sorts of stuff that people end up with when films are completed. And so they have just a monumental amount of things, and I never really felt like they gave enough credence to the posters, and so they weren't very high on my radar. But then a friend of mine had a poster show there, and I got a couple calls over the years, just kind of keeping in touch with people. And so after I heard this news from the library, I called them, and they were very, very receptive, and they were more than willing to take this group. So the idea really of giving things is to get the word out on these posters and to develop more of an appreciation for them. I think a lot of film people consider the quote-unquote art to be the film itself, of course, and so the posters get relegated to this category of, I guess the best analogy is kind of the way a chocoholic would treat a candy wrapper. And of course the fine arts people consider, well, this is commercial art, so it doesn't really, they don't help elevate it to the level of a lot of original art, shall we say. So it's kind of in this weird space. Those of us who collect it and really appreciate it consider it just, you know, unbelievable graphic art and a comment on the culture in our country. And it traces an important art movement for, you know, since, for over 100 years they've been making films. So
it's amazing.
We think it's great.
I do too. A lot of thoughts going through my mind. I'll try to focus on one that popped into my mind was the kind of hilarity with regard to how difficult it may be to actually give something away to one of these big institutions, like the red tape one needs to go through. I think you kind of lightly touched on that with what was the institution in D.C. You said the entity there. So that's interesting that you addressed that. With regard to the art itself, I may be unique in this, but I generally base a lot of my decision with regard to what film I want to see based on the poster movie art advertisement of it, because I think that the quality and aesthetic of the image or still image of the cinematography generally exemplifies how it's going to be shot.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. You're sort of old school then, because when film began in the turn of the century, in the teens and the 20s and whatnot, the entire advertising budget for a film went into the poster. production and distribution of these posters. And
Wow.
then as the technology changed and radio came in and television and, everything started to evolve, the advertising budget started getting cut up, and only a portion of it would then go towards the posters. So today, I would have to say, the influence of the posters is severely reduced compared to the influence that it used to have.
Okay.
And when these things first were designed, they were meant to grab you by the lapels and
Yeah.
scream into your ears, get your butt in this theater and see this film.
Right.
Now there's so many other ways for people to hear about films and be influenced in terms of whether they want to go see it or not.